online about a month ago, which was very successful, but this is the second one where we're all face-to-face and in front of each other, which is really good news that we're all back together and can talk properly to each other again. My name's Mary Lee and I chair the LAC, the Local Area Committee, and before I ask the other councillors and officers to introduce themselves, I'll just pass you over to Jay Bell, who's going to talk about the housekeeping arrangements for this evening.
Thanks, Chair. Please can I request that mobile telephones and other such equipment are switched to silent mode to not disturb the conduct of the meeting. There is no fire test planned for today. If there is an emergency evacuation, please take instruction from the council staff present. There is a fire exit in the far corner of this room. Disabled toilets through the hallway across, and the males and females are down the corridor through the double doors, then turn left. The meeting today is open to the public and will be streamed live for subsequent broadcasts via the Council's website. You should be aware that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during this webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy. By entering the meeting room, you are consenting to being filmed and for the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting. One final thing to mention, we have hearing loops available, so if you would like to use one, please let us know. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Can I just ask if anybody needs British Sign Language as a language interpreter today? We've got 2 people who can do BSL, and if you do need that service, then I can ask you to come up to that table there. No? Okay, thanks a lot for that one. Okay, so before we start on the agenda, I'd just like to explain how the meeting works. We'll deal with the formal business of the meeting first, so that's apologies, declarations, minutes of the last meeting, etc. And we're then going to bring one of our items up the agenda. So Alex Polak, who is here tonight, will be talking about Transitions Committee. He's at the bottom of the agenda, but I'm going to bring him up. The agenda to go after before the public questions and petitions. We then go into public questions and petitions, and that is for 30 minutes only, just 30 minutes for public questions and petitions. And please, I know if you've got any public questions, they'll be really, really important to you. But please don't make long speeches. We have maybe 2 or 3 minutes for a public question. So do your preamble and then ask your question, if that's okay. And if we can answer tonight, we will do. If not, we may have to get back and send you a written answer to the questions, because we haven't got any officers here tonight who might be able to answer certain technical questions that you might bring. Okay. We'll then move on to the community plan, which is one of the most important items on the agenda tonight, and the area manager will give her presentation, and then I'll ask members of the committee to vote on the plan. Once the plan's agreed, we'll ask people to stay on their tables and we'll have a breakout session. And there's some questions on the table we'll be asking. You'll be joined by councillors who will help facilitate the discussion, and then we'll come back and do any other business, and that will be the end of the meeting for tonight. So once again, thanks everybody for coming, and I hope you have we all have a really good meeting. Okay, so just first item then is introductions of officers and members of the council, members of the committee. So I'll start with Alex.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Alex Pollock. I'm the Assistant Director for Governance at Sheffield City Council.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Siddall. I'm the Head of Communities, Sheffield City Council.
Jay Bell, Committee Secretary.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name's Huda Ahmed, and I'm the Local Area Committee Manager for the East LAC.
Hi, everyone. Zahira Naz, Councillor for the Darnell Ward.
Charlotte Meyer Richards, one of the councillors for Manor Castle.
You know me, Mary Lee. I'm a Darnell councillor.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Anne Murphy, and I'm a councillor for the Manor Castle Ward.
Hi, my name is Ben Miskell. I'm one of the councillors in Park and Arbourthorne.
Good evening, David Barker, one of the councillors for Richmond Ward. Mike Gravel, one of the other councillors for Richmond Ward.
Councillor Terry Fox, Councillor for Manor Castle Ward and Leader at Council. Hello, my name's Diane Hurst. I'm the third councillor for Richmond Ward.
Hello, I'm Sophie Wilson. I'm also one of the councillors for Park and Arbourthorne Ward.
Thank you. Are there any apologies?
Chair, I've not received any apologies for absence.
Massa.
I think there's an apology from Mazza Iqbal, but you've probably not received it as in an email from him. Okay. Are there any items we need to exclude the press and public? No? Any declarations of interest from councillors? No. Okay. I'm going to ask Alex to come up and do his presentation now. Or I don't know if you've got a presentation, or I just want to talk about the Transitions Committee, about the new committee arrangements.
Thank you for fitting me in early, Councillor Lee. I do appreciate it. Everybody here has had a busy day because the councillors have been in the full council chamber today agreeing and discussing the matter that I'm on the agenda to talk to you about this evening. I'm only just going to take 5 minutes, and what I'm here to do is just to talk to you about the changes that are happening to the way that decisions are made and to who will be making decisions at the Town Hall after May this year. And it is a direct result of the referendum that took place almost this time last year, last May, in which many of you, if not all of you, will have had your say. So we're going to be talking about who will be making decisions and how. I think this context you're all aware of, but the key thing to say is that there's been a real emphasis in this process about not just changing to a committee system, which is what the referendum mandated us to do, but also to change the way that we make decisions to make sure that the voice of citizens is at the heart of the way that councillors do that in that new committee system. Just in terms of what actually is changing from a technical point of view, there's a simple diagram first. Many of you might be familiar with this, but in case you're not, at the moment there is a full council, all 84 councillors. It met this afternoon in an amazing Art Deco, amazing chamber this afternoon, Arts and Crafts chamber. Various committees that already exist, that have been in existence for decades, that do things like planning and licensing and so on. And then you've got a leader, and you've got the current council leader sat here, Councillor Terry Fox, who appoints around himself or herself a cabinet from the leadership, from the administration of the council. What's changing of all of this is just this part in the middle, that cabinet and the leader who make decisions at the moment replaced by multiple new committees. Now, I should say the leader isn't being replaced. The leader would still be there, but they don't have individual decision-making authority in the same way. Instead, there'll be a chair of a committee, like many other councillors will be. So there'll be multiple committees in that space, each of which will be politically proportionate to the full council. So all the parties on the council henceforth will be involved in decision-making where previously it was a cabinet. No, this is tiny on the screen. I'm showing you this because you get a sense of how many committees there are currently on the council. And if I zoom in, this part here, where you currently got a cooperative executive, is what we call the cabinet at the moment, because it's got both Labour members and Green members on it. We've currently got 5 committees that are cross-party, that don't have any authority, but that kind of look in and check and challenge what the cabinet does, what the co-op exec do. And then we've got some committees we've had this year called Transitional Committees that have been sort of trying out ways of working to get ready for next year. In the new world, as agreed this afternoon unanimously by the councillors, this will change to this, a system where you've got a number of committees, each of which is politically proportionate. You've got 7, I don't know if you can see, housing is one, waste and street scenes another, adult health and social care, that kind of thing. Each of which with a chair, each of which with members of all the political parties on the council sat on it, making decisions on those subjects. There's also going to be a kind of a committee that deals with stuff that's cross-cutting, and that would be the one that's chaired by the leader, stuff that's kind of strategic in nature or that would be about more than one subject area. And then you've got a series of subcommittees that I won't go into in more detail here. But just to let you know that this has now come about. After the referendum nearly a year ago, it now is certain that this is the structure that we're going to be working with from May. But I said that I would talk about the way that we'll be taking decisions as well. So I've covered who is taking decisions after May, and we've said it's politically proportionate committees. In terms of how they'll be doing it, first of all, Local area committees obviously continue. They're a critical part of that system, and they've been given equality, parity of esteem inside that system. So they report straight into council, just like those other committees do. And this committee, amongst all the other local area committees, has been given the ability in the new system to escalate issues to any of those other new committees. There was a consideration that you might be just under one of them that would have sort of the responsibility for all of the local area committees, and council said no. It's important that we can feed in anywhere we like, that we can escalate any kind of issue to any of those decision-making bodies. So that's the ability that you've got in this local area committee going forward. And you've also got a new public engagement toolkit. And again, I know this is small writing. Hopefully, because it's such a big screen, you can see at least some of that. This is just a starting point. The council has said we think this will take us 5 or 8 years, a long time, to change the culture of the way we operate. We've heard, we understand that people would like us to change something about the way that we operate, and it's all about public participation and engagement. But that's going to take some time. Our starting point is that there's been a commitment by councillors that when they are sat in those committees, when they're looking at their forward programmes of what are we going to decide next month or the month after that or the month after that, that they'll be using this toolkit to consider what level of engagement with the public, partners, stakeholders, etc., would be productive and important on all those different issues in advance of making those decisions. So, it's only a start, but it's something concrete that the council has committed this afternoon to making sure it does in its decision-making process going forward. The longer ahead bit, the developing more strategies, trying to get better at doing that, offering training and development to officers and councillors to get better at building the voice of the public in from the beginning, not just at the end when councillors are taking decisions. That's also on the menu, but obviously that'll take a bit longer. That's all I wanted to say today, but if you've got any questions for me about how that's intended to work, I'm here and I'm more than happy to answer those. And if you will forgive me, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave after those questions. I understand you've got a really busy and productive agenda this afternoon, but I've got something else I need to see to you this evening. So thanks very much for having me, and I'll answer any questions you've got now, no problem at all.
Okay. Any questions for Alex on the committee system? Excuse me, sir, could you tell us who you are?
I'll hold it there. Anybody like me who was involved in local government pre-1974 who simply wants to tell you that you have come back to your senses and that the abolition of the committee system was a mistake all along.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks a lot. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting. Are we? Can we agree them?
Yeah.
Members of the committee? Agreed. Okay, public questions and petitions. Okay, we have 30 minutes for this, and I would say just try, I know you want to explain your question, but then please do it as briefly as you can because we don't know how many questioners we have tonight. I have got one question from somebody called Neil Cardswell. I've got a written question here if somebody wants, do you want to stand up and tell us again who you are and what the question is?
Hang on.
We'll get your microphone if you...
Yes, my name's Neil Cardwell. I'm a resident within the area of this proposed absurd parking scheme. And I had 3 questions I want to ask. I want to ask, how many residents will that affect within that parking scheme? How many complaints about parking have you received from the residents that live within that parking scheme? And how many residents of where I live, Ingram Road, have come?
Manor councillors, if they want to answer any of those questions, if they can, and if not, I'm going to, some of them are technical, I'd have to probably get a written answer for some of those questions.
I want Terry to.
Terry, do you want to say anything?
I think there may be a number of questions I'm predicting. So if we check all the public questions,
okay,
if you want, Mary, then we can answer where we are rather than kind of keep answering, if that's okay.
I'm going to ask for questions on this issue first, and then we'll go to other public questions. And please remember, there might be other people here who want to ask a public question on something else entirely. Okay, lady in front.
Ross. Yes, I want to know how... my name's Rosalie Hill. I'm Chair of Park Community Action, which is responsible for the... two other sides have no waiting restrictions all day. The third side has a limited number of parking spaces, but it is virtually impossible for our users to park there. The proposal actually reduces the number of available spaces, suggests that we actually charge people £1.30 an hour to access facilities which were either free or at most cost £1 an hour, and which are aimed at people on low incomes, particularly at building, nor indeed for the loading and unloading of provisions which we get for our food pantry on a Tuesday from FareShare. We now have to put out cones in order to prevent other people parking. There is also a major issue, apart from commuter parking, of people parking cars from adjacent garages while they are waiting repair. I regard this as totally unacceptable as far as the public is concerned. I do have a proposal, which is that the current yellow lines be replaced not by anything else other than a change in the parking restrictions, and that we have a scheme which moves from no parking all day to one which has parking not before 9:30 and not between 4 and 6:30. This would be acceptable to us in terms of the way in which we operate. We can organise our staff hours to fit in with that. And so I want to not only make a question, but also put a recommendation there. And I also would add that the same situation applies to other community buildings in the area with which I'm less familiar. That would include Victoria, Victoria Enterprises, and the Bethel Church, and the Post Office.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions on this? So, Terry, do you want to make any comments and answer any of that if you can?
You mean the whole parking scheme? Are there questions?
Yeah.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
So, say who you are?
Yeah, I'm Alison Rossiter. I live on Holdings Road. And I submitted a petition that we're circulating with my request to be put on the agenda, but I want to be clear that that petition is not being submitted now because apparently that closes it. It was just to list the reasons that are on the petition. So that could, sorry? Yeah, the question is just, do you remember it? I'll let David take over. Basically the question is this still in consultation? Is there still a chance to be heard? We don't feel like we've had our democratic opportunity, and what you talked about on there about engagement with the public. And there are people who are new to the neighborhood like me. We weren't ever included in the consultation before, which people feel was not well publicized. And we've already got, the petition's only been out one day, been published one day. We have paper petitions, which we haven't circulated yet. We're already at 100 in one day. So we're going to be circulating these this weekend. So I think we're going to have a lot of people voicing objections.
Okay, that's fine. And if when you've decided that your petition is what you want it to be, it's satisfactory, then you can either bring it back here, or you can take it to a full council meeting or a committee after May, the relevant committee.
It won't be till June. Okay.
So the next full council will be June, I'm told. But you can go to a committee before then, possibly. I think they're up and running from June.
Okay, is anything going to happen before then, or are we going to walk out in May and find yellow lines being...
I'm going to get those questions as far as they can answered tonight.
Okay.
If there's any that we can't answer, we will get you a written response.
Okay.
Just ask, is there any more questions on this one? So you've asked the question, sir. This lady here, Sandra.
It's not a question as such.
I'd rather you frame it as a question because this is public question. So we need to start the way we need to go on.
Yeah. In the scheme, there's 65 roads included. From the beginning, it's called Park Hill Parking Scheme. It's not Park Hill. It's a lot of other areas. Also, a lot of the roads, City Road, Farmbank Road, have never even received a card. We've got lots of people who've told us that, so it's not fair from the beginning. How are they supposed to know about it? It's been mishandled, you know, this is why everybody's so angry about it. And people think they can buy a permit and they can park in front of the house with a permit. There's double yellow lines, you're not guaranteed a space for a permit. So it has been, from the beginning, we've tried to have meetings with the highways, the councillors, nothing's been done. That is why we're getting no feedback, and that is why these petitions leaflets started. It's been mishandled from the beginning. So that's just what I want to say. Would you like double yellow lines even in front of your driveway? A parking bay, parking meters? It's residential roads, most of them, not a car park.
Okay. Well, I think I've got 3 questions from what you've just said, and if Terry can answer some of them, that's fine.
Can I ask one final one? And it's
can you say who you are, please?
Yes, sorry, David Cobbler, I live on Norfolk Park Avenue. Can I ask and name this in a nice way at Terry, who kindly has given me an email today to say that there is a letter coming out to residents which will update the position apropos this scheme. We're hoping that, quite frankly, that it's abandoned, but we're not optimistic about that. There are too many mixed messages about the cut-off day. The TRO says quite clearly that that is the 7th of April. Our good friend Councillor Richards has said that it can be extended, but no one seems to say this is what the cut-off date is. We cannot go to a full council meeting until, as you rightly say, June, because the TRO was issued after the March council meeting. There isn't one, I gather, in April. The May one is a no-no, and the next one is June, which is way past the so-called cut-off date of the 7th of April. And personally, I think everybody here would say, can we please have an answer tonight to say that, like the legalities of the TRO, can that day be scrubbed and display a central day? There are problems about it, and we all accept that, but can we write ourselves that the authority say to the consultation, let's say 7th of June, for goodness sake, that's what I the people of April.
Yeah. Okay.
To know that.
We'll just thank you for you've made that. Any more questions? If you could, who you are.
Well, you just as has been my reps and others their action in for Garden Donning and of the tensions of there has been able to get whether to be linked
the question. One more. Have you got
what that letter about?
Just pray.
I've lived well over this about last week. Why?
any of those?
I can. So tonight, the fact is, elder council. I think it is handled better about that. We're dealing with, unfortunately, but I forget. So I've got my back now to get this COVID to when sorry COVID 2 and Michael this off large offices of people vociferous areas. When the area, we said no than the issue past. I how you will of and it became very early in parking, but they wouldn't. They came it is probably the large. They're not going to street walk on. Issue around that. The fact that was just some college schemes pre-COVID, a number of leaders, I understand, on their for comment. The vision why we've it's so people can be making say the stage of consultation will finish the 20. That is a lot of that will analyse. But even conversation already that is I'm sorry, there's more. I mean, analyse. We will mid, which will there will. So you will have. If at all, say, board, consider now we've had this local office system. Every, I think, if there's other that, then every so actually state will be done already realised it may be rearrange the TR traffic, put that in to take the process. I can nothing until summer those people come public meeting to then what if is possible. Now on promises is and and we're dealing with evidence. The law say on it, and that as council in the area cannot be. All it was to sketch. It was that's why I'll get a large. I have to say people out for as a slow way as it can. We are weak. Obviously, tells it. Please don't. That will say every minute. But if we have a we hopefully is that we conversation going off we'll have an op and that way so once I don't want it that's it knowing to the city and face etc. Everybody avoid come back information is the fact at the moment, and then if you letter please for officers I think analyse when we'll have discussion don't wait replies
case if and then so then
I'm saying I don't know all the everybody I'm not saying that, is that not I don't send for it analyse them that to do
I'm going to take a public question. Leader of the council answered the question because of answered. We'll make sure this to any cause forward now. You've not brought it's absolutely we don't want occasion and that's that people to sorry
Chair, any questions? Okay, if you've got we'll and I'll share it so that's okay email box specific we'll sort
okay then Thank you very much. Questions? Questions?
I'm plus one things obviously because I'm concerned about transport. General newsletter consultation. Document to go. What did you say?
And certainly we will make that those meetings. In terms of consultation.
I mean,
absolutely fine.
thank you.
I can't see any.
Okay. Community language today. Point taken. Just of the first, I'm not talking about law. One about the out. So we talked to focus particularly as members and making sure it is because about that later. Right? We've had people the whole to opinions and I would vice chair the with an community. Next slide. These are wards. Again, of information. East area, the areas in Richmond, on the UGO, which local the industry. I'm not going to talk significant area. People living and classified housing. Can the lacks how we have priorities that and I into they've said about the big issue. Another one. For make sure that consultation far said fizzled made promise that we've and in that the possibly resources being around priority is done there. The task be chaired by hers. Officers about the individual task and role about resources and crime is a thing around it. The areas, infrastructure, task set up officers to support that young people, whether it's particularly is the council with offer the best way. The thinking off and with in space. I think all there. With the sector, so the tables and offices at the moment for an action. The Richmond areas like and also already group utilized to make sure to the members to decide the 7th. So it also until the last community plan. Have got to become allocated. It was. I didn't have the information. Just to kind of projects and we set up this before meeting, where that like community. It's like I focus issues and it's if about making universities in terms of the fourth the project widest talking about an east on its to the wide and then I don't want you to it's about orders to do my priority members difference so that we are so community in action the report they'll send to the press well now I would like to
say thank you for the work hair go forward. Thank you.
Anybody else?
See. Been running cold to was the was at Norfolk by not being that we've been I knew as many years. If you're saying if number tackle appointed today in vital when problem residents to dealing rights their life illegal data problem that and I'm a resident really if you may well these issues.
Thank you. That's this plan. Formal your
So, and it's about the in the plan. I am conscious. What to say? Officers staying long. Members, if you can leave us the address, tables or
one or two people.
Two table and then
there's the
Oh, you were the best table, weren't you?
As a hero, you're right. You're going there.
Huda? So on my table, they wanted to feedback themselves. Is that okay? Because we've got representatives from the Youth Parliament, so I think it's really important that they are able to feedback. We had a really good conversation as well, and there's lots that will feed back to the committee and to Huda as well, but they're going to highlight some points.
Who's feeding back from that table? just let me know and stand up. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, hang on, the table behind you, Roz.
Hello everyone, I am Yalana Rotter and I represent East in Sheffield Youth Cabinet, and we looked over some things, and thanks for having us. Actually, we need some more younger voices around, and I think we need a support from you guys to having more opportunities and enhancing stuff around having more opportunities from school supports, like how we can start small things in our school and then make them on regional and national levels. And as part of East Sheffield, I would like to start from small schools, my own school. I am a student of Sheffield Park Academy as well, so we can start from here, talking to our head teachers, and then having you guys' support as some foundational support, which will help us go to other steps. I'll hand it over to Zainab if she wants to add.
Yeah. So I also think that we need to have more consultations with communities to ensure things are happening in schools. This can be through Google surveys, forms, social media, using social media and utilising it to get messages across young people, especially these meetings, so more young people are involved, and things like this. So consultation in school to make things heard, more meetings with young people, and using social media to enhance this.
Thank you. Is there any more feedback from your table?
Yeah, I think that one.
Oh, that's it. Thank you very much. Really good. Thank you.
I think she has one.
You finished? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, Shauna?
Well, we had somebody who was very disappointed with the way the LAC's developing, coming out of a failed system within the town hall, and felt that we ought to be devolving more resources and powers to local people and local communities in particular. And if I've got that wrong, then please do speak up.
I'm not sure which table you're on, but anybody want to elaborate on what Shauna just said? Has she captured what people's thoughts were? Fine. We have got...
Thanks, Mary. I spoke to this gentleman, who also works for SAFTI, and some of the comments that he shared, on the table shared, was around engagement, although it needs to be broadened, but it has been working, and how we need to do more to work with seldom heard groups. The consultations have been working, but the offer of working with people in all communities, and also how the LACs are another way to actually share information. So, in a nutshell, they were just some of the comments that were shared. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you could exit.
Yeah. Okay, we were on table 2. We had a very, very good discussion. It mainly surrounded health and well-being, but what we did was we brought a lot of different topics into that heading. So we did look at traffic, we did look at disability parking, for example, so that people could make use of some of the fabulous services and community group spaces that we've got in our ward, in the manor in particular. We also looked at better communication between officers and local residents, and actually what a lot of people want to see is that face-to-face contact with certain officers from, say, planning or highways, or that they make themselves available for certain meetings, be that on a ward level or a LAC level, but actually that they come and talk to the community and to local residents about certain issues and certain projects that are going off in the local area. We also looked at social prescribing and just how difficult that is to access it for people with disabilities or for people who, after COVID, are struggling with their mental health in particular, and just the lack of knowledge and information that's put out by the local GP surgeries about what is on offer for people and how they can be referred into certain services in the area. So we had a really good discussion, and it kind of covered all of the areas really. We looked at making use of our parks better, so asking people to come forward who want to do certain events in the park, be that exercise or certain groups that would also tap into people's health and well-being, and again communicate that more effectively. Maybe a little local ward newsletter or something that goes around regularly to keep people up to date with what's on offer in the ward, how to access it, charges, etc., etc. So it was a really good, healthy discussion. No pun intended. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Anne. Ben?
I was on the same group as Sinead, and she was able to summarise that quite well. Thank you.
David?
Yeah, we had a good discussion, and some of it was relevant, so I'll feed that bit back. I mean, some of it was about, East LSE is big. We need much smaller local groups, but if we're meeting with smaller local groups, we need somewhere to meet, and in a lot of places there aren't the places to meet. We also said that even if we had the smaller groups and the places to meet, people still probably wouldn't come. So a good idea to actually link it on to already popular events, just bolt stuff on, or offer not bribery, incentives, food, stuff like that. That is more likely to bring people out. We absolutely agreed with that table there on involving schools, the plans for people of all ages in the area. And if we can get into schools, and the school person who sat at our table said we could, then you've got a captive audience there that would be excellent. A word, certainly in going forward and in engaging, that came up was trust. Have we let people down before? Sheffield City Council, does that inspire trust in people? If not, we need to actually get people's trust in order to get them to engage with us. Another interesting point was about continuity of personnel. We build up relationships, we start to progress things, and then everything changes. I pointed out there's a very easy way for the continuity of your local councillors. You can ensure that they stay the same quite easily. But there are times when we just seem to reorganise for reorganisation's sake, and the relationships that have been built up are lost, and you're starting again. We also talked about things being understandable and inclusive. There's not an assumption that everyone can read and everyone can read English. We need to ensure that we get messages to people who might not be able to do that or might have other barriers. There's obviously a huge elephant in the room: money, resources. If you want to get stuff done and you want it to be sustainable, you can't do it for nothing most of the time. You've got to do that. And one other thing in terms of engaging with people, which I didn't think councillors would want to hear at this time of year, but the words door and knocking were mentioned in terms of the most effective way of actually making people get the message. And I hope that sums up what people are saying on our table.
That's really comprehensive. Thank you very much. And I've done a lot of door knocking this weekend. Yeah. But not in this area, in another area. But anyway, that's fine. Anybody? Diane?
Yes. Mike and I were working on Table 5, and we had some really good discussions about how groups and communities and organisations could be part of the solution. We had, in actual fact, representatives from a couple of local groups in different parts of the East Like, who already had good working relationships with local members and who already felt supported by them. We were talking about, they were surprised to see some people who weren't here, if you know what I mean. That seems a strange sentence. people they had conversations with and organisations they had conversations with that were delivering what was needed in communities, but who didn't feel that perhaps they could come to a meeting like this because they probably didn't know about this meeting, or there were language barriers, or they didn't have the confidence to come to a meeting such as this and speak out, or they didn't know that they counted. They didn't know what they were doing and just taking for granted was actually part of the solution. And I thought that was really, really important. And that led on to the challenge in identifying people and how they can link in, and learning from what worked well in the past and transferring those kind of projects from ward to ward. If they'd worked well in one area, see if they'll work well in another area to solve the similar kind of problems. And the strengths of using local networks that exist, faith organisations, community organisations, Volcom sector, whatever, and growing those networks if they didn't exist, and commissioning them to get information out, because they, you know, in much the same way like conversations at school gates used to work, or conversations when we all went to work at the coffee cooler, you know, the old photocopier, you know, they would talk to people and they would spread information around, and using what you got, work with young people's strengths, and acknowledging that, you know, they had skills that older groups and older people sometimes didn't have. So bringing them in and giving them a sense of pride and work with them, their strengths and abilities. There was some disappointment in how particularly some of the priority areas had been selected, and the hotspots and fly tipping were mentioned, in that they felt that community and councillors know where those areas are, where the hotspots are, but that wasn't reflected back in officers' priorities or officers' actions. So it felt like there was a different degree of measuring going on to what they were living with and experiencing every day. So, you know, how we remedy that, I don't know, but it came from two different groups in two different wards. So, you know, I've noted it down there to see if the metrics, the measures that we're using, are actually the wrong ones. I think that was it, wasn't it? Have I captured all the main points?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Stan, really good. Is any Terry or Sophie?
No, I had a discussion with my group about parking, Chairman. I think we're comfortable where we are, aren't we? Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie.
Abby might want to go over it more because she was taking the notes, but we talked a lot about facilitating joined up working, so we looked at some of the priorities. I think we kind of mainly focused on the first question, you know, how can you help? And we were talking about, you know, there's lots of groups in the local area that can help, but we just need to signpost them correctly. And then we got into a bit of a discussion about what would be the correct way to do that, you know, online, offline, etc. But Abby might have a little more when we get through the list.
Abby, do you want to add anything to that? Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. In my group, I was on this table here, and similar themes have emerged from that table to what's been mentioned already. And one was about, you know, how do you get involved in a voluntary group? How do you know where that these voluntary groups and organisation exists, and the LAP needs to maybe take some responsibility for ensuring there's a register of groups and that that people know and when we're advertising these groups, and how people can get involved. Also to develop, where there are organisations, to develop the networks of those organisations better than we have done in the past, so that networks are connected, so that groups are connected within a network, and they again can pass on and communicate with each other in a better way. And using those groups and that network to pass on information we might have, and so enabling information to be more widely disseminated, so the groups can then go out to their networks and explain to those people what's happening, or what projects are coming up, or what consultations might be coming up, and so on. So some kind of register of groups within our LAC area. Also, we looked at the crime and antisocial behaviour priority, and we talked about how before COVID there was some regular meetings with housing officers, police, for local community groups and the local community, just to pop in, have a cup of coffee and talk about the issues that have been reported to them that they were concerned about, and can we enable that to restart. So I'm going to pass that on to Ben to have a look at about how we can, not exactly a NAG, which is a bit more formal and a council meeting, but a more informal way of turning up and talking about what the issues are, and also getting some feedback to pass on again to local groups. We talked a little bit about health and well-being, but it was mainly about the holiday activities and food that will be up and running during the school holidays, and to ensure that everybody who is involved and asked to help understands what's going on, particularly parks groups, the Friends of Parks groups, when we have those activities in parks, to ensure that they're fully informed and they're part of those, become part of that activity, so they can then help develop a respect and for the local parks and green spaces. So that was the main thing. It's about communication, basically, really. Good communication, getting everybody involved, ensuring that people know what's available out there, and to develop the networks more strongly than they are at the moment, and really establish them so everybody understands who's where and who's doing what, and they can more closely work together. Is that about right? Okay, do you want to add anything to that? Because I know you continued with the discussion afterwards. No? Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody, anything that we've missed from the groups that were, from the group discussions? Okay. So thanks very much. Is there any other business? It's not on my agenda here, but I'm going to ask it. Any other business? No, well, just thank you everybody for coming tonight. I don't know, I feel has been a good meeting. I don't know about anybody else, but I hope you all think it was a good meeting. Yeah. So thanks for coming, and I hope to see you again in 3 months' time. I'm not sure where we are, but somewhere in the east. Thank you.